You're listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
So what are you measuring? Hey there, welcome back. Do you have something that you're putting a lot of effort into? I would assume so, right? I would assume that if you're not putting a ton of effort into one particular thing, you're probably spending a lot of effort into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. Some of them may have names. It might be your kids. You may be putting effort into your kids, into your husband or wife, into taking care of your home, making yourself relatively healthy, cooking, hobbies, work. You know, this all gets back to having balance, right? Having balance, the flasks, how we pour stuff. We pour the time, energy, and resources into the different flasks and so forth. But I want to be more specific today. I want to know if there's something that you are putting a lot of effort into. So, is it a project? Is it your upward mobility at your job? Is it a particular skill that you're working on? Maybe it has nothing to do with what you do for a living, but there's this thing that you're working on. You don't really tell a lot of people, but maybe you're learning a language. Maybe you have been developing a hobby where you paint or something. Maybe you have some piece of cool tech that you're trying to master. Maybe you've been trying to write a book or a play. Regardless of what this thing is, or, you know, a number of little things that add up to a bigger thing, you're probably measuring your progress, right? So I want to say something important here, and then I want to contradict it immediately, because, you know, it's me. Thank you so much. You are probably measuring the progress. And if you're not measuring the progress, you should be. I mean, you should be measuring that, because that shows you how far you've gotten, right? Come on, Mark, if you don't measure the progress, you'll never know, you know, how you're doing. Aha. That's the part I'm going to contradict. There are things in life that you put a lot of effort in. You put a ton of effort into it, and you don't see any progress. I mean, there are things that we put effort into. I mean, even like losing weight, for example. Losing weight, yes, you could jump on the scale and so forth, but if body composition is changing, as they say, you may be losing at a very slow rate, which is good, because if you take it off quickly, your body will think, oh my God, you're trying to kill me, and then it'll make you eat more. So anybody who has ever lost weight knows that you don't really lose it quickly. You lose it in the same way you put it on, in a way that you didn't even freaking notice. If you're learning a skill or something and you're starting at like square one and you're comparing yourself to someone who's mastered it, even if you're 5, 10, 15, 20, 50% of what they can do, to you it may all look the same. Even if you're losing weight, you may look in that mirror every single day and you don't really notice the change because it's so subtle, because it's one day to the next. But if you see a friend you haven't seen in a month, they'll say, oh my God, have you lost weight? So our perception of progress sometimes is off. And here's where I want to contradict myself. As important as it is to measure progress, you should measure effort. Think about that. If you measure the effort, it will tell you the amount of time, energy, and resources you're putting into it, right? I mean, let's get back to that wonderful, wonderful measuring stick that I invented. If you're spending hours on something, that's going to add up. That's going to have an effect. I mean, like anything, if you don't put time into it, it's just not going to happen. If you don't put effort into it, it's not going to happen. You can say, okay, I sectioned off 2 hours to write, and then you don't write. Well, yeah, you got to put the effort into it. You can fail at writing, but you're still writing. And if you don't put the resources into it, in certain cases, then it's not going to happen. There's certain things when it comes to like marketing and just other things. I mean, like, you literally could be somebody who would benefit tremendously from hiring, somebody who athletically can instruct you at the gym, you know, or gym coach, a physical coach. You may be somebody who tremendously benefits from someone hiring a regular coach, a person like me, for example. You may hire someone like me and you may make leaps and bounds. I mean, that's the whole point of the coach, and we can get into that, but that's not what this is about. What it's about is measuring your effort. And again, I know there's a part of your brain that says, yeah, Mark, I put in effort all the time and nothing happens. That's my problem. But you can't go back and tell me you measured the effort. You can't go back and say, well, conclusively, I put this amount of effort into it. And the last time I did it, I put a fraction of that. And it's the same thing. No matter how hard I try, no matter how hard you try is a very interesting sort of trigger phrase that our brain comes up with that says it's futile. It doesn't matter. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to write a book. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to get fit. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to lose this weight. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to... Right? Well, do me a favor before you say that next time. Give me a little chart. Give me a little chart that says, here's April and how hard I tried, and I measured it by this. Here's July and how hard I tried, which you can see by the chart and the actual measurements I used, that I put 3 times the amount of effort into it. You know, and as Yoda said, there is no try, there is just do. And he didn't mean you just do it. It's not about just doing it. It's about the action of doing is the action of effort. You get me? Because I'll guarantee you that if somebody comes to you and says, well, I tried, your brain doesn't register trying as effort. It means they just said, okay, right? Because the more somebody tries, the quieter they get. Nobody who ever puts a huge amount of effort into something and even fails at it doesn't come to you and say, well, I tried. What they'll do is they'll tell you the amount of effort they put into it, right? That's what'll really come to light. Instead of them saying, well, I tried and failed, they'll say, look, I did this for a week. I spent $6,000 on this. I did this. They will tell you the things that they did. And that's the difference between that kind of try and the kind of try that just squeaks out and says, oh, I tried. That's what I'm talking about here. And that's why it's so important to measure effort. Or at least it's important to measure effort if it doesn't seem like you're making progress. Because measuring the effort can do more than one thing. First of all, it tells you, are you really putting in the time, energy, and or resources into this to get this to happen? And that's, again, where like a coach comes in, or somebody like me especially, who created a whole system to track all that, right? But it also shows if you even did it at all. Because you may be mistaken. It may feel like you're doing a certain thing, but you're not. I mean, if you're changing your diet and you feel like, oh my God, all I'm ever eating is celery, what if you're not? What if you keep having these bounce back meals? Or what if you're compensating, you don't even realizing it? You're like, well, I'll just chew some gum. And then you chew like 27 pieces of gum and they're not sugar free. And now your body's like, oh my God, you're eating all the sugar. Oh, I'm going to make you fatter. I mean, something as dumb as that can happen if you don't measure your effort. I mean, on an extremely serious note, there are a lot of people who go through divorces. And when you go through a divorce and you hire a divorce mediator or somebody to help you through it or somebody to keep you and your spouse together, what have you, your effort's going to be really important. Your progress may go into the negatives, and it can simply be because your partner doesn't want to be your partner anymore. And if you're putting a ton of effort into it, that's where you can see it. That is the eye-opening reveal, is you and your therapist or the guide or the mediator or what have you can see that, look, you're putting more than enough. You're doing more than your share of effort here and nothing's happening. It's clearly the other person that's simply not trying or doesn't have the desire to go on, which is fine. And I'm not making any judgment calls on people who want to be together or not be together. But I'm saying that measuring your effort can sometimes be more important than measuring the progress. So again, does that make sense? Does that seem like something like I always talk about, something that's so obvious, but it's not? And we don't realize just how important it is? So if you're doing one of those many things I talked about, trying to learn a new skill, trying to lose weight, trying to make yourself a better person in this way or that way, trying to drop a terrible habit, trying to make it through a relationship, trying to decide whether you should make it through a relationship, all of those things can be clarified as to whether they're going to happen or not, or whether they are happening or not, if you simply measure effort instead of progress. I really hope that helps. Hey there, thanks for listening. You know I always appreciate your feedback. Please keep it coming. 3 Voices is out. It's a fun read and only $9.99 US on Amazon. And as of this recording, it reached number 3 in experimental psychology. So thank you so much.